Jai Hind friends, I'm Major Gaurav Arya and you're watching the Chanakya Dialogues English. Learned a lot about logistics, basic level tactics. All this came into light. But one thing which was very clear from day one in the Russia-Ukraine war was that we must control our supply chain, we must control our own manufacturing, we must control our own R&D. When we control that, then we truly become a military superpower. Jai Hind friends, I'm Major Gaurav Arya and you're watching the Chanakya Dialogues English. Like this video, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to press the bell icon. Chief of Army Staff of the Indian Army, General Manoj Pande, very recently said that we cannot outsource our security. Basically, what he meant to say was that national security of India cannot be outsourced. And today we are going to discuss why the chief said this, what does he mean by it. I have mentioned this a lot of times earlier also, ladies and gentlemen, that one of the lessons, primary lessons that India learned from the Russia-Ukraine war. There were a lot of lessons, and let me first tell you what lessons were learned. A lot of things about armored warfare, a lot of things about artillery, because we always heard about massed artillery and we've always grown up hearing about, this whole bunch of tanks going, mass armored warfare, etc. Learned a lot about logistics, basic level tactics. All this came into light. But one thing which was very clear from day one in the Russia-Ukraine war was that you cannot fight a war depending on somebody else's manufacturing capabilities. You have to have your own systems in place, which is what the chief says, and this is what he means when he says that you cannot outsource your national security. Again, getting into the specifics of this, for a very long time, a large part of India's weapons were imported. A large part of India's ammunition was imported, and we faced issues from time to time, So wherever India went to war, we had to be dependent upon friendly countries to supply those weapons, those spare parts, those ammunitions to us. And this has caused us distress in 1962 and 1965, 1971, even in Kargil. Those laser-guided bombs that we used on the peaks of Kargil, the Air Force used on the peaks of Kargil, is essentially Israeli. That's Israeli technology. The technology that we used in Balakot, that is Spice 2000, those are Israeli bombs. So what India is saying is that yes, our ecosystem is not large enough today. Today, as we speak, our ecosystem is not well formed enough so that we can 100% depend upon Indian manufacturing for weapons. But we are on the path to Atmanirbharta. We are on the path of Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant India, and we will ensure that over a period of time, we are going to manufacture everything. Now, look at the Indian Navy. Indian Navy has got 60-65 ships being built, all of them without exception being built in Indian shipyards, using Indian technology, using Indian manpower. And this is what we must strive for, especially in the Air Force. Also in the Indian Army. Now, recently it came to light that Germany, they have discontinued or refused to give engines for the Arjun tanks. Friends, I remember in 1994 when I was commissioned into the Indian Army, we used to go to the Mahajan field firing range for field firing practice. Our unit was in Suratgarh, and the closest firing range was Mahajan. And I remember we used to go to Mahajan, and there used to be a lot of field firing in Mahajan. And at that time in Mahajan, there was an Arjun Path named after the famous Arjun tank. And I don't know if that Arjun Path is still there or not, but I saw Arjun tanks there. Long back, I remember clearly I saw Arjun tanks. And till today, I think only a few hundred have been ordered, if at all. It hasn't found acceptance within the Indian Army. So, if you speak to a senior army officer and discuss GSQR, General Staff qualitative requirements, they can, explain further as to how the GSQR are made. But the fact of the matter is, India needs to get its act together, and India cannot depend upon other countries for our national security needs. And this is exactly what the Chief of the Army Staff of the Indian Army meant when he was addressing an audience, and he said that we cannot outsource our national security. Admiral R. Kumar, Chief of Naval Staff of the Indian Navy, also mentioned that we need to enhance our maritime capabilities. And for a very long time, friends, we have been ignoring the Navy. Let me be very blunt, and many people will not like my statement, They will try and say, no, he's making a controversial statement. I'm not making a controversial statement. I'm telling you the truth. For a very long time, we have been guilty of ignoring the Indian Navy. And we always forget that 2/3 of the earth is water. How can you ignore the Indian Navy? Your trade depends upon the Indian Navy. Your maritime trade. They are the guardians of the maritime. They are, of course, guardians of India's borders, maritime borders, of course. There is no doubt. But they have multifarious roles. The Indian Navy has many, many roles, and chief amongst them is also the fact that today, they're doing all these operations and protecting ships. They're protecting ships. Does not matter. Does not matter if that ship is Indian or not. And in fact, 95% of the ships that they have saved from Houthi attacks and other attacks and Somalian pirates, I mean, these are not even Indian ships. But why is the Indian Navy doing it? The Indian Navy is doing it because a chunk of the world's trade passes through those sea lanes. And those sea lanes have to be safe. Otherwise, I mean, how does a country progress? Chanakya wrote 2,500 years back that from the strength of the treasury, the army is born. From the strength of the treasury, the army is born. If your treasury is weak, your army will be weak because all these things require money. So what the Indian Navy is doing is saving the economy. It's a very, very important part for any navy, and this is what Admiral R. Kumar said. He said that, we need to expand our navy, we need to make it better and better because that is one of the guarantors of national security. Now, so when you say that you can't depend upon any other country's technology, you have to be dependent on our own, something has happened in Pakistan and it has shocked Pakistanis. Ajaz Syed is a popular investigative journalist in Pakistan, a very well-known figure. And Ajaz Syed says that, recently Pakistanis asked the Chinese people or the Chinese Communist Party that, hey, we need a software that you use. We need a software, and that software will, let us keep tabs on social media. It's a special software that the Chinese use to keep tabs on their own people, because Chinese have a different social media altogether. They have a Chinese version of Twitter, they have a Chinese version of Instagram, they have a Chinese version of Google, they have a Chinese version of Facebook, of Twitter, everything. There is a Chinese version. They don't trust Western platforms because the servers are in the West, and the Chinese feel that they cannot control. The basic fight in China is controlling the opinion of the people of China, because that is what China fears the most. And I often say this, and a lot of people don't like it, but Chinese do not fear India's mountain divisions, and they do not fear America's nuclear aircraft carriers. What China fears is the Chinese people. They're terrified of their own people, right? And now Pakistan has asked China, give us that software so we can keep tabs on our people also. And China said no. Pakistan was very upset. China is a friend, and relationship sweeter than honey, higher than the Himalayas, deeper than the oceans. Why would the Chinese not give us this software? Aren't we good friends? Aren't we brothers? Etc., etc., etc. That same Rona Dhona crying of the Pakistani establishment, saying that why wouldn't the Chinese give us this and all that. So Chinese have another fear. Chinese say this is proprietary software. And the reason why the Chinese are not giving it to the Pakistanis is that they do not have faith in the Pakistanis. They do not trust the Pakistanis. And you know why they have said that we will not give it to you? The reason why they said we will not give it to you is they said that you will give it to the Americans. You understand? So that is why China gives them junk like JF-17 Thunder aircraft, which nobody in the world uses. China also does not use. They've given them junk aircraft. You fly junk. All right? Because we know that if we give you an advanced aircraft, you will sell the technology to the Americans, or you will just share it, because Pakistan is like an open bazaar. It's like a shopping mall. If you have the money, you pay, and the Pakistanis will sell everything to you, including national integrity, if there is something called national integrity in Pakistan. They will sell everything. They'll send their honor, their integrity, everything, their nation's honor, integrity. So the Chinese suspect Pakistan. They don't trust Pakistan. And what they say is that if we give it to you, and if Americans give you some money, and if Americans say, hey, which software are you using? Let us know. The Pakistanis will be the first one to take money from America and sell them that Chinese software and give them all the secrets. China does not trust Pakistan. So if Pakistan had a software of its own, if they could develop, I know they can't, they can't develop anything. At best, they can do a little bit of agriculture. That's all the Pakistanis are good for. Otherwise, there is no great brain ticking away in Pakistan. But The moral of the story again and again that I'm trying to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is any country needs to depend upon its own resources. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what General Manoj Pande, Chief of Army Staff of the Indian Army, said, that India cannot outsource its security to other countries. We must control our supply chain. We must control our own manufacturing. We must control our own R&D. When we control that, then we truly become a military superpower. Thank you for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. And if you like this video, press the like button, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram, Bharat Mata ki Jai.